Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_daddy. Well, apparently now what needs to happen is I need to do the same podcast 2 days in a row every day. Because I do a topic. One of them was ruined, unfortunately, very passionately, and then the next day I kind of just do it again. And then yesterday I go off on a tangent that I didn't think would be a tangent. I thought it would be 5 minutes, but I started getting angry and digging and finding things, and it was a fun topic for me to discuss. Anywho, today I'm poking around. You know, it's relatively early in the morning. All right, we got to get some Sal content. Let's get it rocking. And I'm realizing that we shouldn't have signed Van Ness voices are bigger than I thought. My assumption was, not that I know, but for the most part, let's say the content creator community, and I think that this matters, and I'll tell you why in a second. I'll be condescending to everyone in a second. They largely are like, this is obvious, you needed to do this. And that's what I was seeing, largely. And so the fan base was kind of split, but I figured they were probably whatever. But the reason that I think that it matters is for the reason that Peter Bukowski always gets trashed, and that's the whole I do this for a living thing. And I know that's condescending and whatever, but in reality, you know, it matters to me when all the guys that have been doing this for decades kind of just look at the issue and go, yeah, that's going to happen. You know what I mean? Because you just kind of know how things go. It's not necessarily even about what you want or what you would do. You know how things go. And so I figure, okay, we're all on the same page. We get this. And then just very last minute, like I'm about done scrolling and I see something and I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, all right, let me save that and I'll go dig up the full clip on that before I react to the little thing on social media. And then I see somebody else do the exact same thing. And even more passionately. And I'm like, okay, I guess, you know, I asked people to call in, and maybe they did. We'll check Packernet After Dark later tonight. Maybe they called in to express their point about Lucas Van Ness and why he shouldn't be paid. But I wanted that counterpoint. I didn't know if it was really out there strongly, but if it was, I wanted to know what it was, because maybe I'm missing something. There's always an angle that you don't think of. Got to be open to that. And I shouldn't be super surprised. You know, I try not to be adversarial to other creators or whatever. I'm happy that everybody's out there. Everybody works hard. They do a good job, whatever. But I should have known that it's ESPN. And, you know, I've always said the Packers need to have a voice for the disaffected, the angry, the bitter, it's not good enough, all that. And I wanted to kind of provide that, and I still may down the road. Sal was supposed to be that, and then he became everybody's best friend and favorite uncle or whatever. Just decided he's going to go his own way on that. But I think we might have it in ESPN, to be honest. And there's some smaller voices out there that I know of. I know there's some guys on Facebook, go figure, that kind of go down that route. But I think that's it. I think ESPN is the voice of the angry and the bitter and the more emotional than rational. But the point is, I keep seeing them unanimously like, this is stupid. This is the dumbest thing. We never should have given him the fifth-year option. So I want to take some time. Might end up being much longer than I'm anticipating. You never know how these things go. But I want to take a little time to let them make their case, and let's see if I was just way off on this thing. All right, so full disclosure, I've heard the clips, but I haven't heard the full context. So we are going to go through this live, and if I'm wrong, I'm freaking wrong. But I want to hear, and I've heard there's 3 videos from ESPN. I've heard 2 different groups make this claim. We'll see. You know, again, it may take a while, but let's just get started.
Packers exercise Lucas Van Ness's 5th-year option.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm not losing my mind. That's the stupidest thing ever, right? And you said...
stupidest thing ever. I mean, I understand how hyperbole works, but that's kind of crazy. I mean, again, I feel like I'm seeing online a lot of the people that, again, do this all the time have the opinion of, duh, of course this was going to happen. Again, not necessarily opinion. It's just this is how business works. And apparently ESPN is absolutely not of that mind. In fact, they're in the exact opposite direction. This is the stupidest thing ever.
Duh. Like, that's not, you're not losing your mind at all.
I was just like, am I missing something? Like I know this. I guess to start, does anybody think this is a good idea that's listening right now? 800-990-3776, YouTube at ESPN Milwaukee.
Yes.
If you were Brian Gutekunst, would you have done this? Put that on the YouTube poll, Strofe. If you were Brian Gutekunst,
it wouldn't even be a conversation. This is the most obvious thing in the world.
Would you have exercised the fifth-year option for Lucas Van Ness?
You say his name all condescending like he's a bad football player, and he's absolutely not. I don't know why you're saying that. You're saying it like he's an idiot. Oh, he just got knocked out. I was trying to watch this fight here.
Ass or whatever.
I do too much multitasking.
Whatever you want to call him.
I mean, when we think about it, we just were all upset and mad about the lack of performance from Rashawn Gary, were we not? We said
Okay, well, Rashawn Gary's gone.
Rashawn Gary was not living up to his contract. Well, right now, with Lucas Van Ness getting that additional money.
First of all, Rashawn didn't have a massive contract. Here's one of the issues, and you can say he still wasn't living up to his contract. That's fine. I mean, number one, we're ignoring the first half of the year and pretending the second half of the year was the entire picture for Rashawn Gary. He ended with like 8 sacks because he got 8 sacks in like 8 games. I mean, he was dominant. I don't know what happened the second part of the year. Maybe there was an injury. Maybe he's just burned out. I don't know what happened. First half of the year, he was phenomenal. Secondly, we have this thing that we do where when somebody gets a top contract, they get a massive contract, we pretend that they still have it. We did this with Kenny, too. Kenny's getting this massive contract. He got the highest paid contract of any defensive tackle. This is like 4 years later where he's like the 11th highest paid defensive tackle or something. Again, we don't recalibrate. Rashawn Gary was not getting as big of a contract anymore as you thought. And he played better than what people want to say that he did. I understand the stretch, the second half stretch, when the entire team sucked, that he didn't play very well. I get that. But the first 8 games, he was one of the best pass rushers in football. And again, I just want honesty about it, because there isn't. We pretend that he's still the highest paid guy, and we pretend that he only had a terrible year. This is the same thing where everybody thinks that the Packers are bad because they just look at the last 5 games. It's like, what are you, stupid? Why are you doing that? Why are you only looking at the worst parts and then saying that's the whole picture? And then going back 4 years to when Rashawn signed his contract and was the highest paid or one of the highest or whatever it was, and pretend that he still is. Well, he's not living up to that contract. The guy's getting nothing. But okay, either way, we're not talking about Rashawn Gary.
He's getting teetering in the space of what Rashawn Gary was making per year. And so with that, Lucas Van Ness.
Hold on. Again, this is a completely false framing of the situation. And I don't like when people do this because I have to assume you're deliberately being dishonest to make a point, and I don't know why you're doing that. Why not just be honest? Why are you trying to angle it to make it look a certain way? So again, the dishonest line of thinking here is we pretend this thing where, well, Rashawn was like the highest paid guy. And now Van Ness is getting the same contract as Rashawn, implying, without saying, that he's getting this massive contract, that he is now one of the highest paid guys. It's $14.5 million for a pass rusher. Do you know the top guy just got $50 million a year? Do you understand how nothing $14 million is? It's less than a third. So he needs to be 1/3 as good as a top player. This isn't even number 2 money. This is garbage money for an edge rusher. This is nothing money for an edge rusher. And by the way, I have no idea what he's even talking about because Rashawn Gary back in 2023, so we're talking 3 years ago, got a $27 million contract? 24. In what universe is $14.5 million the same as 24? And that's not even adjusting for the inflation of the salary cap. Because 24 in 2023 money compared to 2026 money is, 35? So it's like double the amount? What are you talking about? This is pennies for a pass rusher. So what do you mean he hasn't lived up to it? What does he need to do to get a 5th-year option in your mind? Who does he need to be? He needs to be a top 10 pass rusher?
was going through the mind. But I do know this. Now, when I look at Lucas Van Ness, my expectation is that he performs. There's no more, he's injured.
Performs up to $15 million? Do you understand that means nothing? Let's see who's making $15 million a year. Well, Rashawn Gary with the Cowboys right now. Maybe that's what he meant. But again, when people listen, they're not thinking that. So Rashawn Gary, who got traded away for very little, is now sitting at that range. Deo Odenigbo, absolute joke over in Chicago, is getting $16 million. Bradley Chubb, Kwity Paye, Eric Armstead, who's 33, a bunch of 30-year-old guys, a bunch of old guys, a bunch of has-beens, a bunch of bad football players. Playing up to whose standard? You want him to be what? He needs to be Max Crosby now, who's making $40 million a year. Is that what you expect? Montez Sweat in Chicago got $25 million. Does he have to play up to that standard because he got a 1-year, $14 million deal? What are you talking about? What do you expect him to play up to? And again, I don't even think it's that much. Over the cap listed at $13.752 to $13.8 million under the edge linebacker designation. Either way, there's a discrepancy. Is it 13.75 or 14.5? It's a very small number. Do you understand how small this number is? I don't think they do. Now I have this really high expectation.
Here he has no.
But if he doesn't perform, we're just gonna be like, what?
We're stuck with it. What do you stuck? Stuck for $14 million again is nothing. And what do you mean by stuck? Are you saying we'd be better without him? Would you rather our team not have Lucas? Is he so bad that he's actually a negative? What are we talking about? Do you want him to play next year or not? You're saying we're stuck with him. Are you actually saying that we would be better with Micah Parsons and Deni Dennis Sutton and Baron Sorrell and frickin' the 5th round linebacker that we got? That's what you want to happen. You don't want Lucas Van Ness on this team anymore. What a stupid thing to say. And guess what? Here's the thing. If he doesn't perform, what do? This is what the negative, we move on. I'm not paying him. No, you pay him what he's worth. You pay him what he's worth because you'd rather have him than not have him. And guess what he's worth? Probably still more than the 5th-year option is, but it's a small number. And it's you just pay him what he's worth. If he's worth $18 million, $20 million, and people are going to freak because they're going to remember when Za'Darius got that much, and it was like the biggest contract in the world, even though now $50 million is the top, because again, we don't know how to think and how to keep up with the salary cap. We think $20 million is some massive number. Lucas Van Ness is not going anywhere. And I don't want him to go anywhere. And you shouldn't want him to go anywhere. And I don't know why we think he's bad. What is he bad at? Are we saying that because he's not this elite first-round pass rusher that we all hoped that he would be, that makes him bad? Just give him the 5th-year option because he's not going anywhere, obviously. And he's not going to be worth less than that. There's no way this guy's going to get like an $8 million contract. That's not a thing, bro. It's not a thing.
We're stuck with it for a whole nother season. It makes no sense.
Again, stuck with him for a whole other season. What are you talking about? Why is he this toxic, horrible thing? He has been an asset for this team, absolutely and completely. And you're out of your mind for framing it as though he is this horrible thing that we're stuck with. What exactly do you want? Apparently, they want him gone. Why? Do you understand how much worse we are without him? We're stuck with him. What a weird thing to say.
To me, I don't believe the risk is worth the reward.
Correct. What risk? What risk? The reward is that the guy who is always going to be there next year, who's not leaving, and you shouldn't want him to leave, is going to be here. And rather than give him a bigger contract, which he's going to get, let's give him the 5th-year option now. And guess what? Here's what I'm going to tell you now already. I already know this, and I don't know why they don't know this. This is where I get frustrated because they should know better. They work at ESPN. They do. Maybe it's because they cover a bunch of other stuff. I don't know. Maybe they do baseball and basketball and everything, so they don't really pay attention to football as much. I don't know, but you should know better. Duh, he's getting a fifth-year option. That was obvious, and everybody that knows anything about football and pays close attention should have known that. Number 2, you know what else I know? He's going to get a big contract next year. They're going to give him a contract, and by big, I don't know what that means. Again, it's kind of like some of the other guys that we're talking about, like Christian Watson. He's getting a big contract, but it's in the context of the injuries and everything else, and so big is kind of relative. Is he getting the biggest contract? Probably not. Van Ness is going to get a decent-sized contract, and everybody's going to freak out about how big it is because, again, we're not going to understand the salary cap. We're going to overestimate or underestimate how much money we actually have available to us because, again, we don't look at percentages. We look at whole numbers, and we're several years behind on that. He's not leaving, and they don't want him to leave. We don't have first-round picks, and even if we did, why do you think they don't like him? They like him, and they should. He's a good football player. This is the guy Micah Parsons couldn't stop gushing over while Rashawn Gary was the guy that was standing right next to him. He never talked about Rashawn Gary. Not one time. He talked about Van Ness over and over and over and over again, and he showed up and he looked very, very, very good. That doesn't mean he's going to be good, but even if he's not very good, guess what? He's going to get a contract because he's our number 2 pass rusher, and we're not going to find another number 2. Denai Dennis Sutton is not going to be our number 2, and Barron Sorrell is not going to be our number 2, and whoever we draft in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round next year is not going to be a number 2. It's going to be Van Ness, so frickin' get over that. He's getting a 5th-year option, and next year he's going to get a contract, and that 5th-year option is going to help us to smooth out this contract. Because that's going to meld in. So it's going to be, let's say it's $30 million per year. I know I'll give you a heart attack about it. 30, let's say it's 30. Well, it's going to be 30 over 4 years, but it's actually going to be, you add in the 5th year, which is this year, which is at 14 million or whatever. So you do the math on what that is, and it makes the whole thing actually lower. It ends up being an extension more than an actual just full contract or whatever. Anywho, that's what's going to happen. So that's why the 5th-year option was obvious. And the fact that you didn't see it coming and think it's stupid isn't because Brian Gutekunst is stupid. It's because you don't know how football works. This isn't a them thing. It's a you thing, bro.
That's where it gets to. We have enough evidence.
Especially when you're talking about the $13+ million that he's going to get that could have been invested in somebody else or something else.
In what? You think you're going to get somebody of Van Ness's quality at $13 million? I don't listen to ESPN other than to react to stuff like this when I see it. Are they over there just trashing Van Ness all day? Is that what they're doing? This is why, I see Packer fans sometimes come out and they have the weirdest negative opinions. And I'm like, where are you getting this from? They almost listen to ESPN. They drive to work in the morning, turn ESPN on their truck radio, and listen to it, and they're like, oh, this Van Ness guy must suck. They're always talking. Van Ness doesn't suck. I can very easily and happily tell you that, and I'd be happy to go over some of his stats. We're going to take a break right now, but I'm kind of just stunned at the fact that they're stunned by this, and I'm stunned by the fact that they believe, apparently, that this is some parasitic, terrible, monstrous being that we need to usher out of the building and that we're actually stuck with him for another year, which is terrible. I don't know what we're even talking about. I'm going to try to get through this and get to the other thing. We might just skip over to that, but I don't know what's happening right now. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
That can be more impactful for this roster.
No, you will never. And again, this is the stupid thing with the salary. Don't pay them, because we'll use it somewhere else. What does $13 million get you in the NFL today? What do you get for $13 million? You're going to get a more impactful pass rusher for $13 million. Again, Deo Odenigbo is a pile of dog crap that is getting, 16? What the hell are you talking about? $13 million will get you. Carl Granderson from the Saints is getting $13 million per year, and he signed that. I don't know when, but Carl Granderson, you want him? This is exactly what I was talking about yesterday. There's this weird thing of I refuse to overpay, and of course we're always super negative about our own guys, and we think everybody else is amazing. So it's a very simple strategy. Don't pay anybody on our team, and then take that money and go get somebody that is a free agent. Oddly enough, why are they a free agent? Why didn't somebody pay them? But we don't need to worry about that. This stud freak pass rusher that I heard his name a long time ago. Let's go get him in free agency. We'll just pay him $13 million because, of course, really good pass rushers who are just floating around in free agency, despite the fact that they're so good, everyone must want them. Of course, he's going to take $13 million when 50 is the top. That's what top guys are asking for right now is $13 million. The only reason we can get Van Ness this low is because of the 50-year option. He's worth way more than that, and you don't recognize that. Oh yeah, we're gonna take this stupid contract and not give it to Van Ness and then invest it in somebody else that's going to be more impactful. Okay, you can't do that because he's worth more than $13 million. Let's just say I don't know what his value is. Let's call it 20, and that's low. Okay, cool. So take the $13 million. We'll get rid of Van Ness. We'll lose him. Go find somebody to replace Van Ness that's worth more than 20. Good luck, dummy. Lucas Van Ness had a 76 grade. He's one of the few guys that is good at everything. 68 run defense, basically a 70. 81 tackling grade, 71 pass rush grade, and a 69 coverage grade for that matter. You know what? I know exactly what it is, and I didn't even realize this because I don't care. He had 3 sacks. Oh, the 3 sacks. Oh, my goodness. He only played 300 snaps, so, to be fair, Micah Parsons, who was hurt by week 14, played 700 snaps. So did Rashawn Gary. Rashawn played the entire year, 700 snaps. So if we just double it, which it's more than double, but it would be 6, which, okay, still low. But again, ESPN doesn't think this way. They're going to look at the stat sheet. They're going to say 3 sacks, and they're going to say he's bad, which is stupid. He had a 15% pressure rate. As I've said, that is when you get into the elite tier. 15 to 18 is the top tier, and he hit 15. He was a very good pass rusher, while at the same time being a really solid run defender. He is an incredible football player. He's actually quite good. And he's going to get a big contract. Now, we'll see how the 3-4 thing works out, but even if he's not performing up to what you would like him to be, why are we going to get rid of him? Why would we let him out the door? He's still better than the alternative, which is not having him. Oh, but we're going to take $13 million and go get some stud pass rusher. You live in fantasy land. What are you talking about? We'll do just a little more, and then we got to move on to the other guy. But we're only a minute and 30 in.
If Lucas Van Ness is not good next year, then we're going to have an issue because that means that this team is not elevating their level of play, and now they're stuck with him.
Hold on. If he's not good, it means they're not elevating their level of play. Right. I mean, if guys don't take a step, then they're not elevating. What are you telling me with that information? It would be nice if they did elevate, but sometimes they don't elevate. Most guys don't elevate. Do you just cut everyone that doesn't elevate? You don't pay anybody? If they don't take a step, they get cut? What if they're just okay? What if they're just subpar, which is most of this roster, by the way? Do we not pay any of them? I don't understand what you want to do with the roster.
Micah Parsons needs somebody across from him who can beat guys one-on-one.
Who is that? Who is it? I want to hear the plan. I haven't heard a plan yet.
Lucas Van Ness has not showed us that he has the ability to beat guys one-on-one. If Lucas Van Ness was just a guy, cool. But
he has. 15% is stupid. It's very high. It's a lot higher than a lot of other guys. I promise you that.
Lucas Van Ness being a first-round
13 overall pick.
Who is now being paid as one of not the top, but getting paid handsomely well.
No. Again, as I said, somebody pointed out on social media, we're talking like the 40th highest paid. This is stupid. You work at ESPN and you think 13 to 14 million is a lot of money for a pass rusher in a market where the top is 50? This is freaking embarrassing.
He needs to perform better. He absolutely has to perform better.
I mean, I would like him to, but this is stupid. This is again like this is AJ Hawk all over again, except I think he's better than AJ Hawk, where he's a solid role player. He's a solid football player, but because he was drafted in the first round, he needs to be frickin' Micah Parsons. And if you're not Micah Parsons, then you're a bust, and I hate Gutekunst, and you need to go, and we shouldn't pay you these monstrous contracts of $14 million, which is frickin' pennies. That's basically a garbage, do-nothing 31-year-old pass rusher.
and it needs to start this season. There is no more holding his hands. There's no more making excuses.
Who's making excuses? I haven't made a single excuse. I simply watch him play, and I come over to PFF, and I go, oh, good job, Luke.
Van Ness needs to play like a first-round pick. If Lucas Van Ness does not...
He does. He outperforms most first-round picks because most first-round picks are not Micah Parsons. Most first-round picks end up being to bad, and he's better than that.
Double-digit sacks. I'm talking about 8 sacks or more if he isn't disruptive.
Okay. And again, this is all they care about is sacks because it's the most shallow version of analysis. There are contextual issues here. For example, what is he being asked to do? His pressure rate is quite high. And again, he played less. He's probably at about 8 snaps if he played as many snaps as Micah Parsons did, or 8 sacks. He's probably at and around your stupid number that you're obsessed with. But he didn't play as many snaps, but you don't care about that. You're not going to even look at how many snaps he played. You're going to see 3, and then you're going to say bad, and then we're going to move on. It's embarrassing. Do better.
He isn't forcing turnovers. If he isn't the guy
How do you know that? How do you know that? The guy had 27 pressures on very limited opportunities. You're telling me not one of those caused a bad ball? You watched all of them? I don't think you did.
The Packers expected him to be. This will be a stupid extension by Goody. I have no idea.
No, it's not. If he's subpar, he's worth that money. Because that's what he's being paid, is subpar pass rusher money. This is not a big contract, guys. Hello?
Idea why they decided to do this, because I can promise you there will be guys going into free agency next year that could contribute to this team for the same price or less.
No. There is no good pass rusher that will take $13 million. And you're going to let some young, talented, promising player who took a massive step from year 1 to year 2, let him go so you can get some 32-year-old guy who's broke down, but he used to be good, that's willing to take a $14 million contract because that's going to fix all your problems. But of course, they will never actually go out there and find the person. They're just going to assume. Because again, they think this is a massive contract. And so it's like, oh, we could have spent this massive amount of money on some premier pass rusher. The hell are you talking about? Who is the person? They won't tell you because they won't even look, because they don't care. They just talk. They have computers in front of them. They don't use them. They're scrolling Twitter or Blue Sky or something. Here's a third ESPN channel. This is with Jen, Gabe, and Chewy, which I just recently realized one of these guys is a former football player. I didn't even recognize him. I didn't even know. But anyways, let's try to very briefly go through some of their thought process.
It was surprised. I was shocked. Just because, again, we had heard.
Again, why would you be shocked? Why? This is duh.
Goody talked. When in the run-up to the draft, Goody was asked about it, and he said, we haven't talked. Basically, we haven't talked to Lucas Van Ness about it, so I'm not going to tell you guys what we've decided.
Right.
And I took that as, they're not going to pick it up.
Why?
Because that's the only reason you have to have the conversation.
See, again, they're so bad at thinking through things is the problem. And this is why they come to so many bad conclusions. That's absurd. That's absurd. You don't want to have a conversation with Lucas Van Ness about a 5th-year option before you decide to give him the 5th-year option? You're telling me that there's no scenario where you'd want to talk to him about it first? He's taking a position that is wrong. People do this all the time, and I don't understand why. He's telling you that there is a reason that what we do is we bring people in and we talk to them about getting the 5th-year option or not, which makes sense to me. And so we know that there is a reason why you would. And he's standing there and taking the position that there's no reason other than you're not going to sign him. You're already wrong because they just did it. So don't take that position. Just learn something. Learn from it. Take that and be like, I thought that meant this, but it turns out that they just wanted to have so now I know. And I'm going to put that in my back pocket. And I'm going to stop being wrong moving forward. But again, you start from these concrete positions of they would never do that unless he's not getting it. Therefore, he's not getting it. And therefore, I'm shocked and was wrong. Yeah, well, stop taking silly positions all the time. Stop assuming things so dramatically and concretely. Be a little more open to some different possibilities that maybe there's an angle you didn't see.
If you're telling someone, I'm going to give you $14.5 million guaranteed.
Small amount of money.
Just for the record, for anybody here at Good Karma Brands, if you're giving me $14.5 million guaranteed, you don't have to have a conversation with me beforehand. Go ahead and make that.
Great. I'm glad that that's your position on it. Anyways.
That public statement. Go ahead and make that announcement. It's great news.
Well, the Packers like to do things a little bit more formally. This is a big deal. This is something that they want to congratulate him with, so they want him in this is the kind of stuff where players would be like, when they gave me the 5th-year option, they didn't even tell me. Yeah, it was a text message, and then they sent it out. It was like they don't do things that they got him in. They wanted until the players come back to the building, and so they wanted to get him in there and congratulate him and shake his hand and say, we've decided and we're really proud of you and you've done a great job. And like, this is the controversy, bro. You're wrong. Just take the L and move on. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about here?
We don't need to have that conversation first. So I just assumed, based on the way Goody had talked about that they were not going to pick that up because he's had 8.5 sacks in his NFL career.
Again, sacks. That's it. That's all they're going to tell you is sacks. That's the whole thing. That's their whole top to bottom. The only thing they know, their analysis of a player is one stat, and it's sacks. That's it. It's ridiculous.
And again, typically when you're picking up that 5th-year option, you'd love to have a longer-term extension on the back of it because there's no flexibility there. It's 14.5
years. It's coming. That's coming. Probably next year, but it's coming.
Guaranteed, and you're just stuck with that full sum of money.
It's a very small amount of money. I don't know why you're pretending it's a lot of money.
On your books against the cap in 2027. So I was certainly surprised that it had happened. The deadline today to pick that up, I did not see this coming.
Okay. Interesting.
That's just saving face for Rashawn Gary.
What? Oh boy, what a theory. What a theory.
He doesn't want 2 turds in a row. This is what GMs do. He knew deep down Gary was a mistake.
Gary was not a mistake. Gary was a freaking powerhouse, and they paid him a contract that was worthy of what he was putting on the field, and then Gary started to decline after that. The idea that we should not have paid Gary is revisionist history nonsense. Rashawn Gary, just like Jair, were very deserving of their contracts. A lot of guys, Elton Jenkins and Kenny Clark, are very deserving of their contracts. But for whatever reason, we've had a very bad string of luck with injuries and other things. I don't know exactly what happened with Rashawn Gary. I do know he had some injury issues, and it must have affected him. Hopefully that's not the same case with Micah. That may go downhill. That doesn't mean that at the time it was the wrong decision. At the time it was the right decision. But if Micah is no longer the same guy anymore, stuff happens. But the idea, this theory is infuriating.
It was a mistake to resign him.
Nope.
He got bailed out by Dallas.
Bailed out.
With giving him a 4th rounder.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I love how he phrases it as bailed out. We got an incredible return for Rashawn Gary. For a situation where we thought we would get nothing. And Gutekunst has done this consistently. He is a phenomenal negotiator who has gotten us way more value than what we've deserved in many different directions, sometimes including bringing people in free agency like Rasul Douglas. We got incredible value. Sometimes it's guys going out the door. I think we got incredible value. We're going to have some incredible returns on compensatory picks. We got incredible value from Wicks. We got incredible value from Rashawn. But of course, he doesn't want to say that because he hates Brian Gutekunst, so instead he phrases it as bailed out because Gutekunst is an incompetent, flailing idiot, and if it wasn't for people just saving him, then he would look a lot worse, and I would look a lot smarter about him. But he got made look smart because of these guys over here. This is such an unfair, petty way to phrase things.
And he's got a save face.
Yeah, but he's not going to.
Yeah, but you're wrong. So that's not it. That's not how it works. Every GM in football would have done this. This was a no-brainer, obvious thing to do. But instead, we're going to come up with this silly conspiracy theory. Okay, that works. Anyone else?
So he's just willing to blow up $14.5 million.
Blow up for you guys unfrickin' believable with this.
$1 million against the cap in 27 to save face.
Yeah. How would that save face if he's bad? Explain that to me. How would that save face? Like, people think that he's better because he got a contract? I don't think so. If anything, that just upsets people like you. even though you're wrong about Lucas Van Ness and what he has provided up to this point because you don't know anything. And again, pretending this is a lot of money is crazy.
Even Ron held on to guys.
Yes. That's why you should have seen this coming, because this is how it works. This is what happens. I'm sorry. He doesn't meet your standard. I'm very sorry. And you know what? You're probably right that he's never going to become a superstar. I think he's going to be a role player. And I just hope that he doesn't go down the Rashawn Gary role of like he kind of shows a little something and then becomes just like, or Kenny or whatever. But that does happen as you get older. But the bottom line is this is a very, very young guy that is actually quite good at his job. And he got a very, very small contract, which is a no-brainer, and he's going to get another contract after that on the back end, even if he doesn't get a lot of sacks. You know why? Because we're a lot worse without him, and so he's going to get paid. And he's going to get paid market value for what he has produced, and that market value is going to be higher than the fifth-round frickin' thing that they gave him. So I don't understand how you don't know this. This is how football works.
Too long.
Yes.
Not a lot of them, but sometimes.
But the fifth
and too long. The guy's 24 years old? What do you mean too long? It's time to let him go after 3 years? What are you freaking guys talking about?
Your option didn't exist back then. Like, this is an easy get out of jail free card.
No, it's
where
not.
You don't have to do it. You don't have to pick it up. And we've seen them not pick up that fifth.
No, because what's going to happen is he's going to get a contract next year, and they know that. And if you don't have a fifth-year option to dull the contract, he just gets a big contract. And it's bigger and it's more painful. So this is a way to make next year and beyond a little less painful when you give him that extension instead of the full contract.
Your option on guys like Quay Walker in the recent past, right? Obviously, they did pick it up.
Yeah, Quay Walker's different because he's a linebacker, and those are much more expensive. And also, we've got Edgerrin Cooper on the back end that made him more expendable. And again, it comes down to the Packers would have paid him, but it's just not enough. It's not worth it to them to pay the exorbitant amount of money that he was going to get on the open market. That's not the case with Van Ness. It's not going to be the case with Van Ness. Pass rusher is way too important of a position. It's way more important than linebacker, and they don't want to allocate massive sums of money. And this is relative to linebacker. It's different than pass rusher. When I say massive, I'm talking about a different scale here. Massive amounts of money to a linebacker when you've already got Edgerrin Cooper, who you're going to pay. And you've got pass rushers, and you've got all these guys that need to get paid. It doesn't really make sense in that context. Lucas Van Ness is also one of the guys that's going to get paid. That makes it harder to pay a guy like Quay Walker. So this whole conversation is a waste of time, a waste of energy, and you're just going to be very angry in the end because he's probably not going to be a superstar. It's probably, hopefully, going to be Micah getting all the sacks, but he's going to do a very good job. He's going to get consistent pressure. He's going to hold the edge very, very well, be a really solid run defender on the other side, which is the complement to the Micah that you need. You need that guy on the other side, the anchor, the big, strong dude. He's a very, very good complement, and he's significantly better than everybody else we have. And for that reason, he's going to get paid market rate. And I am telling you this with absolute and total confidence. Pending some kind of a massive injury or something of that matter, this is not even debatable. They're going to find out how good he is, and then they're going to pay him that amount of money. And again, it's going to be more than $14 million, which is not a lot of money. It's not even a third of the top of the market.
On Devontae Wyatt.
And we're talking about the 2027 scale, which by this point is going to be at least $55 million for pass rushers, just to be clear.
This season, it's the contract that he's playing under, but yeah, it's been pretty hit or miss on those first round picks. Didn't pick it up for Eric Stokes.
It's
technically didn't pick it up for Jordan Love, even though they gave him the half measure extension
different.
Before the big one.
Everything is different, but I'm just telling you how this one is going to work. So I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, who's his outside of Jordan Love? What's his next best first round pick?
Jair
was an absolute stud.
Yeah.
Rashawn was an elite football player. And again, they're only judging the end of these guys' contract. Jair was the number one corner in football. Rashawn, for many years, was one of the top, if not the top. I mean, based on the statistics, not necessarily the sacks, but his pressure rates and everything else, he was up there at the top. So was Zadarius, by the way. incredible football players. But yes, they fell off at the end. A lot of guys, by the way, the ends of their careers are not super fantastic. It's unfortunate that so many Packers ends have come so early. But that's just a situation that you can't really necessarily control. But yes, Jair was elite. Rashawn was elite. Van Ness is very good. And he was heading toward elite before he got hurt. And by the way, was buried behind guys, which Rashawn was as well. But he was better than Rashawn the entire year. He should have been starting over Rashawn. He was a better pass rusher. I don't know what else to say here. All right, I'm done with this one. This one's infuriating. We'll take a break. We got one more ESPN person that wants to whine about this, and then we'll get out of here. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. So this is Homer and Balaga. Again, ESPN Milwaukee. Or, I think the other one was ESPN Madison. I don't know. They're all ESPN. This is Homer and, again, Balaga. And I generally don't listen. I occasionally see some takes that I am surprised by. And again, I do think this is probably the factory of the negative Packer fans who you find on social media. And it's like, where are you getting these angry opinions from? I think this is it. I think it's ESPN. But here is their take on the situation.
Before we do, I wanted to ask you this because Van Ness, the Packers exercised the fifth-year option. Mm-hmm. I never would have done it in a million years. And here's why. This is not about his ability or life. This is, okay, I want to see how weird. He plays with everything on the line. Mm-hmm. And I want to see what happens because I don't know. I just want to see that. And if he plays really well and we lose him, I'll take that risk because –
okay, see, this is the problem that I have. I can track with you on the first part. I don't agree because, again, it's not a lot of money. So he doesn't really have to do much to live up to that contract, and it is what it is. But the fact that you think that the risk here is that he would play so well that we would lose him, we wouldn't lose him. We would have to find a way to pay him, and we would pay him. We're not letting, if he ends up, it turns out, holy crap, he's like an elite player, which, by the way, could still happen, and he's still going to get a mega contract. We're only going to get a little bit of relief from that fifth-year option. So either way, it's going to happen if he ends up being elite. But we're going to pay him. So again, right off the bat, he's already conceding that he's willing to risk losing a superstar pass rusher for his plan of I want to see it, which is silly. If that was the reality, then it's a really stupid plan. But that would never happen anyways. So I hate to come to his defense and tell him, don't worry, that's never going to happen, but it wouldn't. And the fact that you'd be willing to risk losing a superstar pass rusher just because I don't want to pay $14 million in 2027 for a pass rusher. Okay.
The benefit of feeling what I think might get the best out of him, this is a year where we can use that, and we need that.
First of all, the idea that that's going to get the best out of every single player that we've had so far where they're on a contract year, they play like dog crap. So the idea that this is automatically going to motivate people like Rasheed Walker or like Josh Myers or John Runyon, maybe it's just an offensive line thing. I think there's been others, but these guys are on final years and you hope that they do, and they give you the worst product they've ever had, and then you got to let them go. So there's definitely not this idea that, well, this is going to motivate them. I see no evidence of that whatsoever.
Yeah. And if I end up losing out because after that he plays really well, then I can offer him an extension, and maybe he doesn't
want... How do you lose out if you offer him an extension?
To whatever.
And it wouldn't be an extension because you never gave him a contract. He'd be a free agent.
I'd like putting the pressure. I wanted to do that kind of the coach and the GM and see how they react. I think it can be really good, but I just think it's necessary because
So would you give nobody a fifth-year option then? Based on this logic, you should never give anybody a fifth-year option, right? Because you just want to see it and you want to see how they react and everything. Do you understand the benefit of the fifth-year option? Do you understand why they're... I feel like you... I don't know. It sounds like no. It sounds like the idea is it's something you shouldn't use because you want to put the pressure on and see how they react before you give them a contract. And even though it's probably going to be more money, I'm willing to do that. And again, if that's your stance, then you could try that. You could be the only GM in NFL history that has the brilliant strategic plan of never giving fifth-year options. and taking it in the end on the other side of things when most of these guys end up getting contracts and you pay a lot more money and you F over your salary cap quite a bit.
Number of things he's been hurt, he hasn't been, whatever. Dude, it's on the line now. Let's see how you do when we're talking.
And again, we're doing that anyways. He's still in a contract year because 2027 is the year he'll get his contract. It's not going to happen after 2028. We're not going to let it go out that long. So this year he is on the line. He has to prove whether or not he can get some really big contract with the Packers as an extension, or if he's going to get a smaller contract extension based on how he plays. It's the exact same situation, except we have injected this much smaller number to soften the blow of his inevitable contract extension next year. And again, in the event that there is some horrific thing that happens, he gets devastatingly injured and he can't recover, or he is just the worst football player in the world and we got to have a serious conversation about letting him go. Oh, freaking well. It's not that much money for a pass rusher. It's 1 year, and no, you're not going in free agency and finding some elite pass rusher for $13 million. It's never going to happen.
Talking about millions. You got a Bulaga on the line. What's
talking about millions? Of course we're talking about millions. Everything is millions.
That I'll let you know. That's the $13 million he didn't get because they didn't draft him at the right time. So who knows? Okay, he doesn't get the extension, but this year could be worth what? $20 million to him.
Correct.
Because they know, and then they have to decide: will he do it only when it's on the line? I don't care. I just want to see him do it and see how he reacts.
Yeah.
But they don't think
agree.
that.
I agree. I mean, listen, whatever you say about him injured or he didn't do this and do that, like some of that's out of his hands with the injuries, like some things you can't avoid. But like we'll just say what it is. Like it hasn't been overly productive in his time there. So this is
to be clear, I will borderline accept that. But number one, when we say productive, we only mean sacks because of course they do, which is completely unfair. There's and again, this is two former football players. I don't like the fact that if he was playing and we went by a metric like that, well, sacks would be a bad one because if he gave up a ton of sacks, that would be pretty bad. But if we reduce these players down to just like a single thing, they would not be happy with us about that. They would say that we don't know football, we don't understand the intricacies, the in and outs of everything that we've been asked to do. But yet when they become analysts, apparently, they decide that they are going to judge people based on one stat. And that's it. As if they didn't spend all these years in the film room understanding what these guys are being asked to do. Especially as a tackle. You know what pass rushers do. You understand what a win and a loss is, and maybe from his perspective, as long as I didn't give up a sack, I was getting bonuses, so what do I care? I don't know. The other guy was a tight end, so he's in a different universe, I guess. But if we're saying productive, then yes, he didn't get a lot of sacks. As a percentage, it was not great. But he was rated about, and Rashawn, it wasn't 8, it was 7. He was rated about where Rashawn was with the total sack numbers. If you stretch it out to 700, I don't think that's an overly. I don't know. I'd have to look at sack percentages. One of these days, I'm going to kind of figure out like what is a good percentage and what isn't. I haven't done that the way I have with pressures. I'm less interested in it because sacks are such a small number. It's a fluky thing. Sometimes it's big, sometimes it's small. Sometimes mediocre pass rushers get a bunch of sacks just randomly, and then they're just not good. I'm not paying you because you had some fluky sacks fall into your lap. Had a 4-sack game or some nonsense that set you up. But I don't know that he's going to be an overly sack productive guy. I mean, he's kind of a slower bull rusher guy, especially when you have Micah Parsons on the field. Who's going to get there first? Does that mean he's bad? If he's throwing the tackle on his back and he's getting to the quarterback, but Micah gets there first every time, so Micah gets the sack and Lucas Van Ness doesn't, that makes him bad while he's setting the edge like a freaking beast and pushing him back to Micah? I'm seriously, does that make him bad? I don't. They're going to say yes because either you get to the sacks before Micah or you're bad at football is going to be their metric, and it's a stupid metric.
bet on, like, you almost look at it as a player as betting on yourself.
And I would tell him, we like you.
He is betting on himself. Again, it's the same situation. This doesn't change anything. This is just a placeholder for that bigger contract that's staring him down, he's staring down the barrel of. And whether he gets that or not is going to depend on how he plays this year. He's going to get something from the Packers. If he plays bad, then they're gonna pay him as like a, you're our number 2 because we can't find anyone else, but we're going to, number 1, as desperately as we can, start the process of finding somebody better, which is going to be in the draft. And we're going to give you a contract that is much smaller than any kind of mega contract. And it's also going to be structured so that we can get out of it in a couple of years, because the plan is in 2 years, we will find that replacement. Again, we don't have a first round pick, which makes it a little bit more difficult, but we're going to try. We got a presumably stronger class next year with a bunch of picks and capital to move up. Maybe we can get a high second round pick pass rusher that can come in and do something better. And then we're going to try again in 2029. And at that point, we can get out of your contract. But that's the kind of conversation we're having here. This is not about, do we get rid of him in 2027? That's not a conversation, guys. I'm sorry. It's just not. So I don't know what else to say. It is what it is. And I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke and say Van Ness is the greatest pass rusher in football. He's a solid number 2. And how much of an extension he gets next year is going to depend on if he takes a step forward, if he takes a step back, if he stays where he's at. I don't know. But he's going to get a contract that reflects that. And again, if he ends up being a really solid guy, then they give him a contract that says, we want you to be that guy for the long term. And then we can have a sigh of relief and say, okay, we have some time now. We can focus on other positions. We can focus on depth. We can do some other things. In the meantime, we don't have to really desperately try to find his replacement in the next couple of years, which is always going to be a process. I mean, at some point, you're going to have to start looking for Micah's replacement because he's 27. But it's not immediate, but let's say you got 3 years, but you want in 3 years to have somebody else. So, anywho, again, I don't understand. I don't understand this. I don't understand the conversation. I don't understand why we think it's a lot of money, why we think he'd be better off without him, why we think he's such a bad player. Do we understand that he was the number 3 guy? I mean, I know he got promoted when Micah got hurt and everything, but he still played less than half the snaps than Micah did. He played less than half the snaps that Rashawn did by the end of the year. So yeah, give him double and a half. Give him 7 sacks total for the year. That's not phenomenal, but he's probably at and about that range. And I don't think that he gets necessarily better than that. What I want is for Micah to get 20 sacks. And I want Wyatt to get his 5 or so sacks. And I want... it's going to accumulate. And if we can get him anywhere near 7, I think that's phenomenal. We don't need double-digit sacks. We don't need anything crazy. We need him to be solid, and that's exactly what he was last year. So I don't understand the conversation. I don't know what the heck we're talking about. I don't know what's going on in the ecosystem of ESPN that causes this kind of thinking. I have no idea. But it's a surprising revelation to see what they've got going on over there. But I vehemently disagree. And again, if you disagree, I may be in the minority. I don't know. I saw social media where it was most of the content people and the beat reporters or whatever were kind of the opinion that this was always the most obvious thing. And occasionally there'd be a negative comment from people talking about, oh, no, it's not. But I didn't think too much about it. Maybe this is a minority opinion. I have no idea. But I'm telling you that this is just how this is how it works. This is it. So, all right. I guess that did take the whole time. I'm fine with it. We do have a lot more to cover here. I do want to get to free agency and poke at that. I know I've had, I think it was Garrett and maybe some other people call in saying, please, can we look at some free agents? I saw, again, the conversation centered around, what is his name? The super mega elite athlete quarterback in Indianapolis possibly being traded to the Packers again. Sorry for blanking on his name. You know who I'm talking about. Which I've always been in favor of, depending on the compensation. It's probably going to be too high, but I think he's a fun guy and would be, if we can even get freaking 60, 70% of his potential from Matt LaFleur, that guy's going to be incredible. He is such a freak. But maybe he just sucks at quarterback, Maybe he's just not good at football. So we'll dabble a bit with that and some other things, but I gotta get up on it. Yeah. You all have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you tomorrow, tonight, whatever it is. Have a good one. Bye-bye.